about burials in cemeteries, you think about being 6 feet under. But actually, that's not necessarily the case. I spoke with Chris Harrington, the CEO of the Australasian Cemeteries and Crematoria Association.
The whole 6 feet under thing has been something that everyone seems to know a bit about, but and that was the traditional depth, I guess, of a grave many years ago. These days, it's there's far more variation with grave depths. The industry kind of refers to it as single depth or double depth or triple depth in some cases, but the depth of the grave really depends on the number of interments that are looking to be utilised from that grave. So again, it's one of those things where families can purchase a grave site that allows for up to 3 burials potentially.
And that's important, I guess, in this day and age when our cemeteries are filling up. So we've got to make use of the space we have.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And there's a number of different strategies, I suppose, that cemeteries are looking at to help with that need. And again, there's been some articles written in recent times about some cemeteries running out of burial space. I know that Sydney, CB in the metro area of Sydney has certainly been in the news in recent times. But that issue is not an Australia-wide issue. It's certainly just in some areas where population growth has really taken off, and as a result, naturally, those cemeteries will become more populated over time. But yeah, that's one of the strategies, and I suppose the other strategy that is looked at across the country in some states and territories is what's called limited tenure for burials or for graves. So it's where limited tenure or renewable tenure is a situation where someone would purchase the right of burial, so purchase a grave, and they would purchase it for a number of years. So it could be 50 years, could be 25 years. I think in South Australia, you can purchase a grave for 99 years. In Victoria, for example, the legislation differs again, and when you purchase a right of burial in Victoria, you purchase that in perpetuity. So that's forever. So it varies across the country, but that's one way that some cemeteries can utilise that grave space again many years down the track. If the family don't wish to extend the burial right beyond that 25 years or 50 years, if the family don't wish to continue that, then the remains are exhumed and then placed in an ossuary box and then placed somewhere else in the cemetery. They can be buried in another area. There's a number of options, but the cemetery would contact the family and have that discussion well in advance of that end of that period. So yeah.
Chris, you mentioned a right of burial. So when people buy a plot, they don't actually buy a plot.
No, it's a really important distinction to make, Lisa. I'm glad you've raised that one, because often we talk about buying a grave or a plot. We don't actually buy the land. We won't own that land. That land is owned by the cemetery or the government in most cases, or in many cases in Australia. What we do buy is we buy the right to be buried in that land, in that plot. So you would select a grave site, and then you would purchase the right to be buried in that grave site. Once that right has been exercised, as they say, as it's referred to, then in Victoria, for example, you buy that right in perpetuity. So once that right has been exercised and the burial has been done, then that's it. That grave can't be used again unless obviously some rules change down the track, but usually that's it. So yeah, you purchase the right of interment or a right of burial.
I hope that clarifies a couple of things for you. A big thanks to Chris Harrington from the Australasian Cemeteries and Crematoria Association. It's all about being informed and being less fearful of the inevitable and making informed choices. It's why I wrote the bottom drawer book, The After Death Action Plan. It's a colourful modern guide and workbook for you to write down your end of life plans, your life's reflections. Believe it or not, it's actually quite cheery, and it's very valuable. The gift your family didn't know they needed until they do. You can check it out at thebottomdrawerbook.com.au and keep an eye on my Facebook page for more videos like this one. The Bottom Drawer Book on Facebook.